What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today, BTC USD. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get into it, my friends. Did you miss me? I was gone for a little bit of time. It's the second day of February, and the last video that I made was on the 29th of January. It's been a few days. I had to go to Texas, and I did not make a video or a post about it. I thought I did. I did not, though. I made a post on X after I was in Texas. So unfortunately, a lot of you are probably like, where the hell did you go? It might seem like I was bullish up here, and then the price dropped, and now I'm gone to the wind. But no, that's not what happened. I actually, very personal matters that I had to deal with in Texas that I don't care to share, but just know that that's what it was. And now I'm back. I'm back, and I wish that I told you guys a little bit more that I was going to be gone during this time. I know I said that earlier this month, earlier in January. I did say that I was going to go back to Texas, but I wasn't as clear as I should have been, and I'd like to apologize for that. But yet again, the C-Zar curse has worked fantastically. This whole time was while I was gone. Now I'm back, and now we're moving up, right? It's whenever I go on vacation. For those of you that don't know, if I'm ever on vacation, or in this case, not on vacation, just traveling, whenever I'm going places, anytime that I'm out of the office and I step away to travel, the price dumps every single time. It's like failless clockwork. By the way, on that note, the next time that I'm set to travel is sometime in May, so expect a big dump in May. Okay, let's get into this though. Enough about me. Let's talk about you. That should answer any questions or concerns that anybody has, hopefully, right? We've dropped a lot. A lot has happened, and I'd like to refer back to some thoughts that we had back here, some thoughts that we have since relinquished. I've absolutely relinquished. In no way, shape, or form was I right about this at all happening. We were bullish, I think, on my last video. Not I think, I know we were bullish on my last video. But the reason why I think that it's still completely appropriate to maintain some level of caution, let's say, whenever it comes to being completely bearish and accepting that we're in a bear market. Let's go over that, okay? First and foremost, there's a lot of fear. We're in extreme levels of fear. If things were reversed, if we were pumping, right? If things were reversed, we were at new all-time highs. We'd been consolidating. Everybody thought that we were in a bear market, but instead we were in a bull market. If things were reversed and we were up here, and then we had extreme levels of greed instead of fear, and we were extremely overbought instead of oversold, I would be scared that we are near the end of our rope here. But things are different. Things are reversed. It's not quite that easy. I actually want to see high to low here. We're even right at the 1272, 1414 area. I'll flip this back around and invert it. We're at a moment now where we are oversold, where we do have extreme fear. Where, yes, volume has picked up, and there's no denying that. Volume has undoubtedly picked up over the past week. But on that note, let's look at the weekly time frame, and we can see that really not by much. Like the amount of volume that we saw here, this is a pretty big move. I think we could all agree, right? That's a pretty big move. 11% for Bitcoin in a week is pretty big. We had more volume here when we were breaking out of this zone on this 10% move. This is 11%, and it started from a higher price. And we had more volume here. We had more volume here. We have less volume here. It's comparable. It is comparable, the volume here to what we had here, but it is technically a little bit less, right? We're at a point where this whole entire zone is looking like a giant consolidation phase, kind of like XRP, right? I don't know if XRP probably broke out. Let's see. Let's look at XRP here. Now XRP is still in its consolidation zone as well, right? Like this whole thing, similar but different, right? Same but different. No, this is not a head and shoulders pattern. If anybody's saying this is a head and shoulders pattern, I'm not amazed by the volume, right? We haven't had good volume in a while. And really since like the beginning of 2023, like we look at the last time that we had any kind of volume relative at all on this chart was back here. I think the reason why we see such an absence in volume on Binance, the BTC USDT chart, is for a few different reasons. There's a culmination of reasons, right? I think they used to have lower fees, so more fees drives demand and liquidity elsewhere. Institutions came in, so they're sucking up the liquidity too. But even then, not comparing this volume to this volume. I don't think we'll see volume like this ever again on Binance because institutions are here. There's more competition now. But just looking at the volume, relatively speaking, to the past like couple of years, that's pretty pathetic, right? Like we consolidated since November, December, January, so it's been about like what, 2 months, 2.5 months, something like that. And we broke out, and the volume that we received was minimal, very minimal. It was above average, technically. It was a larger spike. That is validating to some degree, but it's smaller than any of these other spikes here. At best, it's tied up with this one, right? But that move, that candle where this volume's tied up, that was a 5% move, where this is 11%. To me, it seems as though we're going through some tomfoolery here. I will die on this hill, this bullish hill. I will not flip bearish, at least not yet. I'll have to see a lower low in order to flip bearish. We have not taken out a macro low. Everybody says that we've taken out a macro low. We're officially in a bear market because we've taken out a macro low. To my knowledge, this was the low, right? Like here, imagine back here. Let's just play a game of imagining for a second. Imagine back here that we thought this was the low, right? That was a higher low. Well, first and foremost, if it was, if we moved up, there'd be no denying that that was a macro higher low, right? We wouldn't say that it was a lower low. That would just be silly, right? We wouldn't say it was a lower low. Clearly, it's like this is not a lower low, macro lower low. No, it's a higher low. It's higher to the macro low that we have before, right? We let this play out. And then what? Does this then mean, if we go a little bit lower than this low here, is that a macro lower low? No, it's not. It's all the same movement. Is this a macro lower low? No, it's not. Is this a macro lower low? No, it's not. It's still a macro higher low. It's all part of this same movement down. And maybe this will age well, maybe it won't age well, but technically speaking, legitimately speaking, this is a fact that we have not technically seen a macro lower low. Even with the price going to a lower relative low, it's a lower relative low, undoubtedly it is. But to call this a lower macro low would be just as silly as those other points that I made there. It's all part of the same movement down. We're all in the same movement down here, the same phase here. And we have not received a lower macro low. We have not. There's still a scenario where maybe you get like a wink below here and it's a fake out. Fake outs do happen. And it would be a macro lower low technically at that point, just like these are higher highs. But fake outs do happen, and if a fake out were to happen, you typically rip the other direction, right? This was a big move. You had a fake out here. That was still a pretty big move. That was still a pretty big drop down. This was just much larger. Fake outs, and again, you faked out to the upside here, and we dropped down. That's just typically what happens whenever you get fake outs. So there is a chance still, even in this dark time, where if we go just below here, as long as we have a proper reaction, you could actually have a macro lower low and still have a bullish kind of dynamic from that, depending on how things work, right? This maybe, that maybe, who knows, right? We're all waiting to see what happens next, but I'm expecting that we do move up from here, that we are at a point where we found support, that we have broken down with less volume, right? And that, to me, that means that we're just not ready to break lower. Now, maybe the chances of going below here are greater now than they have been at all throughout this whole time. And that's true. But are we just going to make a straight one fell swoop move down there? Maybe. Or are we going to correct back, find resistance at prior support, and then reject down? Maybe. Is this a fake out in itself and then we rip to the other side? Maybe. There's a lot to be determined still. And everybody at this point, I think literally everybody in the crypto market, it's got to be like 80% or more of people, are at this point waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? If we look at this on a weekly basis, which we are right now, we go to the bear market low, to the current cycle high, might be the cycle high. From a low to a high, we bounced right off the 236. We bounced right off it. I made a post on X and I said, as long as we hold this line as support, we will we should recover. If we don't hold this line of support, we will likely go to 56K. And I do believe that. I do fully believe that. If we don't hold this line of support, 56.6K awaits. And that's not such a hard reality to believe. From a high to a low there, that would be a 55% drop, which for Bitcoin in bear market circumstances, we'd undoubtedly be in a bear market at that point, right? I mean, we would have a lower macro low. Again, this is a lower relative low. It's not a lower macro low. That's not the same thing, right? That's like saying that that here we have a higher macro high. It's not a higher macro high. No, this was your higher macro high. This was not your higher. It was a higher relative high, but the higher macro high, technically, this is technical analysis. It might sound like I'm cherry picking, but that's kind of how it has to be. You have to be technical. The rules are rigid, and this game will try to trick you in whatever way they can, especially with a low volume move to the downside. This is a very, you guys, this is not a small feat to accomplish here. 23% drop in what was essentially 2.5 weeks. That's a lot for Bitcoin. The volume, to me, does not represent that. It doesn't represent that. It no more represents it than it did here. We had even more volume back here, and look at what that brought you. A reversal, immediate reversal from this exact same level. I shouldn't say immediate. We consolidated for a little while. Going back to the thoughts here about the 236, just because we've wicked below this line does not mean that we haven't held it as support. In fact, the very fact that we closed right at this line and are now recovering from it does show that we have found support. If I'm saying that we need to hold 83K for support, and obviously we broke through this, but just hear me out. If I'm saying we need to hold 83K for support, and it doesn't look like this, we wick through, but we close above, guess what? We held 83K as support. If I'm saying that this red line needs to hold as support, guess what? We held this red line as support. You can still wick below, but is it breaking through? Are you breaking this line of support by going down $1,000 and then coming back up and closing above there? Or would you be breaking this line? Is it more of a break if you're like down a couple $1,000 or $1,000 even, but it's on a weekly closing basis? That's a break. This is just wicks. They're not. It's not the same thing. Maybe it could be. Maybe it could be. Maybe this is a signal that we are going to go lower. But at the moment, what I'm seeing here is we are finding direct support at this exact level, the last level that we should find support at if we want to maintain the stance that we are still in a bull market. Which nobody's probably saying right now that we're in a bull market. I want to refer back to another thought that we had way back here in the very beginning, and we haven't talked about this. I haven't addressed this in quite some time. I was going to bring this up in the very beginning of this video, but I totally got distracted. But the fact of the matter is, every single time that Bitcoin is pulled back this whole cycle, every single time in one way or another, we get a lower low, right? Whenever we're consolidating here, we're moving sideways. The low that we had was a slightly lower low than this low here, right? Oh, I guess not, actually. That was not a lower low. It was slightly lower than these lows. I guess that was the slightly lower low. I guess it wasn't a slightly lower low. Every single moment, except for that one, we had a slightly lower low, right? We're holding support here. We're finding support here. And the point still remains, we had support here once we got the relative lower low over the past like month and a half's worth of price action. Once we had that lower low, then we moved up. But I guess the technical lower low was here, right? And even in there, still, we had like a double bottom here that was nice for a second. Once we got the lower low, that's whenever we recovered. But I digress. This one, I guess, is the one exception. Here, you're moving sideways. You got a lower low. And as soon as you got the lower low, you reversed, right? Here, we're moving sideways. We've got support here for quite some time, right? We get this lower low, and this time it's not the low, right? We still have lower to go. But that was a relatively good area to buy. I don't think anybody who bought Bitcoin at $56,000 is stressing about life at all, right? They're probably happy with that price. But even still, once you had this kind of base, it was that lower low from that base that provided support. We do this again over here. It's once you got the lower low, that's where you found support, right? It's the lower low. You were consolidating here for months. For months, you were consolidating here. And at the very ass end of it, you got a lower low, and then you moved up. We had high levels of fear, and then we moved up. Here we've been consolidating for months. Here we were consolidating for months. Here we were consolidating for months. Here we were consolidating for months. Every single time giving us a slightly lower low in what seemed to be a very definable area of support before we moved higher. To me right now, that very definable area of support was here. Here's our slightly lower low. I'm thinking that we're going to move up. It's the same thing that it's been, at least since here, debatably here even. I would say all cycle, but whatever. Agree to disagree. Even the bear market, we moved sideways. We consolidated for such a long time. Where did the bear market end? One final swoop down. It's, in fact, this exact moment seems completely comparable to what we're doing here, just on a smaller scale. It's just a smaller scale. And that time, this moment right here after we dropped, that was probably the worst moment to sell or to get panicky. It was the best time to start getting greedy and buy. Before we move on with the analysis, before we move on with my thoughts, I want to share some thoughts for the bears, because there's a lot of bears out there right now, I would assume. I think I'm safe in assuming that. If there are a lot of bears out there, and there probably are, if you're thinking that we're in a bear market, this is certainly not the end of the bear market. We certainly have lower to go. Every single time we've had a bear market in Bitcoin's history, from the high, the all-time high, to the bear market low, typically, not always, but almost always, almost every single time, has been roughly 1 year away from that high. That doesn't mean it's 1 year to the day, but roughly 1 year. Roughly 1 year. Which would then imply that we will be in a bear market. Bitcoin will continue to drop. And what I'm saying here, I want to be very specific. The low doesn't come in until 1 year later. The low of the market doesn't come until 1 year later, right? We look at this high. The bull market ended here. That was the end of the bull market. 1 year later is not where the low was. From the actual high, the low itself was here, 378 days later. Roughly a year, a little bit past a year, right? We look at this high here, and again, the low is about 364 days later. We keep going back. Typically, it's about a year. Typically, it's about a year. I'm actually kind of curious here. What about this one? Not quite a year, right? So if you believe that Bitcoin's in a bear market, then simultaneously what you believe is we are nowhere near the low from a time perspective. We could go up to this high. We could go to a higher high and still come down. And then come back up, and then come down, and then boom. And then we have our bear market low. And maybe it's at 46K. I doubt that it's at 46K. That's not my expectation. I'm drawing pictures here. I don't actually believe that this is what it's going to look like, but you never know, right? Save this, frame it. Maybe it works exactly like that. We come back, we find resistance at prior support. I mean, it's not a bad idea. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm just saying. And then again, how much would that be? From a high down there, that would be, down maybe to like these lows. That'd be like a 60% drop, 57% drop. That's still pretty shallow, but every time we see a bear market, Bitcoin sees lesser and lesser pullbacks. The point remaining here that I'm trying to get is not that I believe we're in a bear market. I don't believe we're in a bear market, but for the people who do believe we're in a bear market, to entertain your side of the aisle, if you do believe we're in a bear market, the likelihood that we are at the low or anywhere near the low from a price or a time perspective is not likely. Not likely. Likely it would be until later this year, October, September, maybe November, that we find the low. That'd be rather disappointing for 2026 and 2025. I mean, we just moved sideways and down for effectively like 3 years at that point. And that doesn't sound like Bitcoin. That's not the Bitcoin that I know. Down and sideways for 3 years? That sounds a little weird. But if we're in a bear market, if you believe we're in a bear market, then that's what you believe. You believe that we will continue to be in a bear market until August, September, October at the earliest, if not October, November at the latest, right? If you believe in a bear market, maybe you believe in the 4-year cycle still, and in which case, again, if you believe in the 4-year cycle, then undoubtedly we would continue to drop until Q4 of this year. It's possible. It's definitely possible, but it's not what I believe. What I believe right now is that everybody is freaking out, rightfully so, right? I mean, it's a pretty big drop in a short amount of time for Bitcoin, and altcoins are bleeding, of course. But extreme fear, oversold conditions, in what is a observably certifiable support zone, prior resistance, prior support. I mean, like, it's pretty clean structure here, you guys. Minimal volume. It's not below average. It is barely above average, but minimal volume on what seems to be a not minimal move. I'm having a hard time, and I might be the last bull standing. Maybe I'll wear that badge with pride. Maybe I'll wear it with embarrassment in the next cycle. I don't know. But I do remember back here in the 21st of November talking about this exact thing, how we could see a lower low. And I do remember in the beginning of January and at the end of December starting to say, we're probably not going to see that. I don't think that we're going to see the lower low, but it's still a possibility. Well, here it is. And I do remember saying there, as long as we don't go below this low, we are still in a bull market. If we do see a lower low, you'll hear everybody saying this validates that we're in a bear market, but until we take out that low, we don't have a valid bear market. We still have higher lows. And this, at best, is a double bottom at the moment. We'll see. We'll see. Let's look at the short-term stuff, and then we'll zoom out, okay? 1 hour time frame here, looking at this. Volume's definitely picking up, right? You're getting some volume here picking up. But now, notice here there's a little bit, maybe some insider selling right here, right? Things kick off, then the big dogs start to sell. Volume picks up. That validates the move down. we're moving lower. There's less volume. Still a lot of volume, relatively speaking, but less volume. Makes me think that we are going to reverse. And well, we did reverse. We're reversing now with very minimal volume. Now, just because we're reversing with minimal volume doesn't mean that we're going to come back down, right? It's not necessarily the same rules, right? We're in this range still. We don't need to see volume if we're moving up. We don't need to see volume come in until we break out, okay? Just like here, when you're moving down, I wouldn't say, oh, there's no volume, so then we're going to pump up. No, because we're still in this range. And so once you broke out of this range, the volume kicks in. Okay, that should be validating that we moved down. But hindsight's 20/20, right? Looking at this here on the 1 hour time frame, a little bit of bullish divergence there, double bottom. Stochastics look good. The MACD is about to cross above the 0 or reject the 0. The last time that we were in an environment kind of like this was over here. So watch for the signs, watch for the signals, right? And that was on a Friday, Saturday. We're on Monday right now, so it's, I don't know, it's different time of the week too. It might be different things. People are very fearful, not thinking rationally. It's the end of the month. People got to pay rent. People got to pay rent. They got to pay their bills. They got to pay their health insurance, their dental. Well, I guess dental's cheap, but you know what I mean. They're going to be getting out of the crypto markets because they have to cover their own asses. This was not friendly for the everyday working person who is working paycheck to paycheck. This drop was catastrophic for you. Because now, if you're putting money in that you shouldn't have put in, or you've got a lot of money in and you're in a tight spot and you need help, now you're in a position where you have to tap into your investments at a loss, and there's no compromise. The big dogs know that. I think there's no coincidence that this drop and these drops throughout this whole past year typically do seem to happen toward the end of the month when rents do. I don't know. It's a theory that I've been working on. 4 hour time frame. It's not perfect. There's definitely end of month pumps too. It's pretty like 50-50, I think, actually, but still, I just feel like there's certain times where it makes sense. I don't know. You know, we're coming out of the holiday season. Money's already tight for people if they are working paycheck to paycheck, and then rents do. I don't know. Just maybe I'm making a story that doesn't deserve to be made. I don't know. Seems fitting. Anyways, 4 hour time frame. I mean, if I was super, super wealthy, like billions of dollars, and I could move the markets around, and I'm trying to generate the most wealth for myself, psychologically speaking, this is probably the best time to cause some pain because people are not going to be thinking properly. If my goal is to get the most amount of Bitcoin, well, the people that are going to sell it to me are going to be the ones who are in financial trouble because they need to sell so that they can pay for food on the table. I don't know. 4 hour time frame. Lower low here, less volume. Higher low in the RSI, higher low in the stochastics, higher low in the MACD. Bullish divergence on all fronts. I think we have found a low, my friends. I think that we have found a low. It's too early to confidently say that, but for my case, for my whole storyline, my whole belief in what this Bitcoin bull market is, it has to be the low. This has to be the low. There can't be any lower lows. From the RSI perspective, because if we go lower, then at that point there's no denying we're in a bear market. I might be the last bull, but I'm still technically standing on solid ground. We're right at the threshold. We're right there. We're on thin ice, but we're still standing on ice. I might have to say something different. I don't know if that hits the same this day and age. Ice bad, ice good, whoever you are on whatever side of the aisle, right? Can we just all agree? I'm not going to get political here, right? I think it's obvious what side of the aisle I'm on. I don't really want to be defined as on any side of the aisle, though. I love humanity. I love people. I love America, right? I want to see what's best for everybody. I don't want to see people get hurt or nothing like that. I don't want to see turmoil and poverty and crime, right? I think we're all the same in that sense. No matter what side of the aisle we're on. But I forget where I was even going with this. But I was going to say, regardless of if you are pro-ICE, if you're anti-ICE, if you're pro this person, anti this person, whatever, can we all just agree that if you're a violent criminal or a criminal of any nature, there should be some type of legal ramifications, right? I mean, I'm all for lawlessness and anarchy, but we don't live in a lawless, anarchaic society. We live in a lawful society, hopefully, right? With good people, hopefully. Do criminals deserve to be prosecuted? That's just my question. And I think, whether you're anti-ICE or pro-ICE, I think everybody would agree that criminals deserve repercussions. I think that's fair, regardless of what aisle you stand on. I don't know why I'm going there, but I think that there's, on both sides of the aisle, the right and left, people seem to think that the other side doesn't believe that. But it's like, I think that we both do. I actually think that we have a lot more in common. I think the majority of Americans and people in this world have a lot more in common with what they actually believe in their core. And that the media and the politicians of the world just have a really good way of putting you in these cookie cutter boxes where if you step outside, you're the enemy. You know, like I don't know. I'm on a whole different note. It's important. I think the whole point of what I'm trying to do, and I'm doing it poorly. That's why I try to avoid politics. Is because the whole point that I'm trying to address is I think that we actually have more in common. And I think they know that. The ominous they, the people at the top, whoever they are, they know that. So they want to divide you on the simple shit. But really, in our hearts and souls, I think we're actually very similar. But I digress, man. I digress. Let's get back to work. Okay, daily time frame. Maybe that's a fault of my own. Maybe we're not all similar. Maybe some people are I don't know. I don't know. And so some people are truly bad. But I think most people are good. I believe in the goodness of humanity, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. I believe that the light will beat out the dark. So just have faith in that. $79,000 right now. The light will beat out the dark, guys. The dark can't win. You go to a cave. It's dark. It's totally dark. Fill it with candles, 1,000 candles. It's light as hell. You could blow every single candle out except for one candle. It's still bright in that cave, right? You go to a cave full of darkness, totally full of darkness, and you just bring one candle in there, and it's light. Now you can see every corner, every crevice. You can bring the light there, right? But if you go to a cave full of light, just leave me but one light, and we can still light the party up. Like light will always beat out the darkness. It has no chance. So have faith in each other. Have faith in humanity. I think that's focus on the things we do agree on. We can argue about the petty stuff later. I don't know. I'm on a whole different thing here. You guys are like, dude, I'm not here for quality hour. I'm here for TA, okay? Tell me you were wrong. Tell me that you're a bad analyst and that we're going to go up so that I can focus on us going down. I don't know. That's what some of you are probably waiting for, right? 70. I don't think I'm a bad analyst, though. I think that some of these big moments, man, some of these very big moments, I've definitely been on the wrong side of it, which is unfortunate. We were on the right side of it. We were on the right side of it for a lot of this market, but for the past 6 months, it's definitely been on the wrong side of the coin. Anyways, $79,000 now. A lot of volume coming in. We're up 2.7% right now. A lot of volume coming in on today. I mean, isn't it kind of crazy? Isn't it kind of crazy how much volume we're seeing? We're seeing some of the most volume that we've seen on this drop, and we have one of the smallest days. I think there's accumulation going on down here, you guys. The RSI is at the same level. It's actually at a lower level than it was on the 21st of November, but basically the same level. And before we went lower, it took you two and a half months to go lower. So again, if you're in the belief that we are in a bear market, if you're in the belief that we're in a bear market, then you should also believe that we are not going to go anywhere below this low, or at least drastically below this low, anytime soon. We're at a relative low point. And at best, for the bulls, we would do some stuff like this again, finding resistance at prior support before moving lower, at best. At worst, for the bears, this is a serious recovery point. Everything I'm saying is true. The amount of volume is completely insignificant compared to anything that we've seen before, and we're going to eat this up whole, and it's a really bad time to be a bear. Back here was not calling for a V-shaped recovery. I was not calling for it. Everybody was. I was not calling for it. I don't know if we're going to get a proper V-shaped recovery here. A proper V-shaped recovery would take you back probably above this high. A proper one would. But I do think we're going to see some type of rapid recovery, and I would assume that we approach this $87,000 level very, very fast. I still believe February is going to be a good month. I still believe February and March are primed to be really good months, and I would be very surprised at this point if by the end of February we weren't back above 90K. If in March we were not back above 100K. I'm still keeping those calls. I very much do expect a very quick recovery to happen from here. I don't believe we're going to see this again. That's not what I believe is going to happen. But time will tell. We'll see how it goes. I mean, just, again, this is the drop that people are saying is validating to the bear market. Whenever we consolidated here for a long time, look at how big of a drop that was once we broke out of that range, right? Look at how big. I'm not going from the high to the low of the move overall, which eclipses this move entirely. I'm not doing that. I'm just doing the part where we broke out of this range. Look at how massive this move was in comparison, right? Look at how massive that move was. That's not even the whole move. Let me get the whole move on there. Hold on. Right? We're going to take the high to the low right here. That's the whole move from when you broke out of your range, okay? Here's a range that we just broke out of, which was way bigger, you guys, way bigger. You don't want me to draw it horizontal? Let's draw it diagonal. Let's do a diagonal. Way bigger range. Way bigger range. Way less volume. Way less volume. And yet the move also, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. I mean, it's about halfway through. It's about halfway through what we've seen before, right? But it's still pretty big. We broke out of this consolidation range over here. The move that accompanied that was basically the same size from a high to a low. It was a little bit smaller than that, but again, a lot more volume. This is the move. This is the move that validates that we're in a bear market. This weak, pathetic, low volume move. Yes, it's more volume than what we've seen, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrongfully skeptical. Maybe I'm rightfully skeptical, but time will only tell, right? We'll see. At the end of the day, I don't really have much else to say. Stochastics, they're bearish. The MACD is bearish. The weekly time frame here, if we're looking at this, MACD technically has bullish divergence on the weekly time frame. We've been red on the MACD for a very long time. In fact, I'm actually curious. Let's just see here real quick. BTC USD, go to the index. I'm sure I've got a huge audience after I went on my philosophical ramblings, huh? The main thing that I was just trying to say there, guys, is that I think a lot of people focus on the political, they focus on the media, they focus on what other people think of other people to tell you how much you should hate the other side. And it's like, really, I think we should focus on not the differences that we have, but the similarities. Because I think we focus on the similarities, we will be shocked at how much alike we actually are. And we shouldn't be shocked. Of course we're similar. Of course we're all human beings. We all want the same thing. Of course. And of course there are outliers. But it's not a 50-50 divide. Half the world is not good and half the world is bad. 90% of the world is good. Maybe 99%. And good people can be lied to. Good people can be misled. Good people can be led to believe things that are not true, that skew their version of reality. And there's clearly multiple sides of reality. There's a clear bipolar belief in what's going on in the world right now. And instead of saying, ha, I was right, or you're wrong, or you're dumb, or you're smart, or any of the insults that people want to throw at each other for having different beliefs, I think if we focused on the similarities, we'd really start to see that what I'm saying is true, that the world is really comprised of good people. I really believe that. From your far right, cowboy, bull riding, gun shooting redneck, to your far left, blue-haired, rainbow tattooed, non-binary liberal. I think there's actually a lot of similarities in people. I think that those two people have far more in common than they do in difference. But again, I'm getting lost in the philosophical BS. We can agree to disagree all you want. Someone tried to say that I was fence sitting by talking about stuff like that. It's like, I'm not fence sitting. Fence sitting is where I don't know what side to choose. I want to be on the right side, so I'm just going to stay in between, and whoever's right, I'll go to that. No, I'm on my side. I'm not sitting on the fence. I'm nowhere near the fence. I made my own fence. I'm sitting behind it. 21 weeks here. I don't give a fuck about what kind of boxes people are trying to put each other in right now. And I think that's the problem. You belong to this box, so you have to think this way. You belong to this box, so this person's your enemy. Get outside of that. Look at the person. Get some humanity in you. I'm talking so much. I don't care though, man. It's my first video back. You're getting a little taste of who I am too, with it. But we're also doing analysis. I'm just not talking the analysis through, but I hope you can see what I'm doing, right? We're just measuring through here to see how many weeks we have ever seen for Bitcoin be red in the MACD, in the histogram. We've never seen more than 30 weeks so far that I'm aware of. We've never seen 30 weeks, ever. Closest we got was 23 weeks back in 2024. What we've got right now, I'm not going to measure this because clearly it's lesser. What we've got right now is 23 weeks. You guys, we have, right now, we've seen more red on our MACD than we did during our bear market. We've seen deeper readings on our MACD on the histogram than we did in our bear market. We've got lower lows on the histogram and the MACD with higher macro lows on the price. That's called hidden bullish divergence. We have bullish divergence on the stochastics, bullish divergence on the MACD, and we're finding a double bottom on the RSI, maybe. We'll see. It's hard for me to be bearish here. Maybe I should have been more appropriately bearish here. Maybe we should have, this whole time, been expecting a lower low to happen, and until then we get bullish. We really flirted with that idea back here in November. We really did, the end of November to beginning of December, but we let that go. I let that go. But this is still something, even though this wasn't my call, this is still something that we more or less accounted for as a possibility and still maintain that we are in a bull market. The timing's different. Back here, when we were at this price, when we were up here at 97K, 112K, 110K by the end of February, that made sense. It doesn't really make sense now. So clearly, these prices are not going to happen by the end of February. Maybe they happen by the end of March. We really could get up there by the end of March, where we had prior support, resistance, resistance here, right? And even still, with all that work, we could get all the way back up here, and we could still be in a bear market, you guys. We could have a lower high, lower low scenario. It could happen. We're not out of the woodworks, but I still think we have a date with destiny up there. I still think that's what's going to happen. And one last thing before I end this video, this really great video that everybody loves probably. People don't like it whenever I talk about politics, whenever I talk about real stuff. They just want me to talk about the price. I get it. I get it. You're here for that. I get it. I get it. On that note, for all the fellas out there, right? Just like you're coming here to hear the TA, you don't care about my philosophies. That's not what you're here for. Some of you do. I appreciate it. I'm not, I get it. We all vibe differently. But most of you are coming here because you want the TA. Right or wrong, you want the TA, right? For the fellas out there, when you go to a restaurant, guess what? Guess what? You're there for food, and the waitress is there to serve you. She's not there to get your phone number, so just stop it. Or if you're working somewhere and a cute girl walks in and you're like, ooh, I should give her my number. She's there to come to your establishment for business, not for that. Knock it off. Knock it off. It's inspired by one of my buddies who can't stop passing his number out. 79K. 79K. We're all over the board, man. We're all over the board. You come here for TA. They come wherever you are for food or to buy something that you work for. They're not coming there for you. It's not all about you. 79K. Maybe that hits with some people. Maybe it doesn't. We're at the 236. We've been seeing this a lot lately where cryptos have been going from all time frames. Their 236 to their 069 and then down. I mean, maybe that's exactly what we do. Maybe we go right there to 109K from a high here to a low there. That's pretty close to our golden ratio zone. Maybe we go up to the 786 even. I don't know. Prior support, prior resistance. Maybe we should think of this as a fake out. And if it is a fake out, then the golden ratio would actually be right there, right at that level. I don't know. Time will tell. I'm calling for the low. Last samurai, last bull standing. Calling for the low here. Hit the dislike button. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.